We're going to jump to our mentoring round, where now I'm going to ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. We'd like you to think back, I guess, during your days at Brightpoint, the first 60 days you really had all the CFO responsibilities come to you. So that first 60 days in the CFO role, there was just something, you would tell yourself at that place and time, something you wish someone had told you. Anything come to mind?
Boy, that one, in fact, was such a unique situation. I walked into that role because of a very difficult situation the company was dealing with.
Okay.
We had some accounting issues overseas. And so we had some major restatements and accounting issues that had to be cleaned up in a couple of different countries that were identified. And as a result of that, my predecessor in the role ended up having some very significant health issues from the stress. And so I walked into not just a CFO role, but the CFO role and the responsibility to clean up our accounting internationally.
Wow.
And so it was kind of an odd dynamic in that case, right? It wasn't just walking in there, but we had to do some major work on an international front to get our accounting up to standard. And so it was, I don't know what I could say looking back. I was well prepared for that because I'd spent a lot of time doing similar things at some of my prior roles. So I had good experience with that. I'd had to do a lot of that when I actually came into the U.S. business and then the Americas business, just because the company had grown so quickly, people and systems hadn't kept up. So I had done quite a few years worth of that. So I was very comfortable in it, but it was a very unique situation. And so I was more focused on just how do we get the job done and keep the wheels moving forward on the business at the same time. And so I think because I was so busy, I didn't have a lot of time to look back. I don't think somebody could have given me more than what I had because I had great experience prior to that in the same kind of areas. So I was well equipped, I think, to do it. And that's probably why I ended up in the role permanently.
Yeah, it often is, I think. The best equipped individual and leader. We always like to ask our guests to reflect a little bit on the personal side for us. We always wonder if there's a personal habit or part of a daily routine that you might have that people would point out to us. That's Tony. He's always done that. Anything come to mind? A personal habit, part of a daily routine, something, maybe a personal chapter in your life? Don't know.
I think positive attitude. If somebody was going to say anything about me, it's like, why are you always smiling? Why do you always have such a positive attitude despite, difficult situations going on at work or at home or whatever that is? And that's a mentality that I think you have to get up in the morning.
Do people see you as an optimist?
Yes. Yeah.
But
also still a CFO. So they will say I'm a straightforward, fairly challenging person as well. I will, call a spade. And if we need to talk about something that's a difficult conversation, they can trust that I'll bring it up. So it's not always the fun side, but I like to make sure we have a positive attitude, even when we're dealing with difficult situations. And that's difficult. That's easier said than done. I went through a bout with prostate cancer last year and worked all the way through it. But, keeping that positive attitude is so important in work and in your personal life. And, soft skills, that falls into the soft skill area. And I'll tell you the one thing, if I look back, I wish somebody would have told me earlier in my career and I had, as we spoke about, I had a lot of that. And because I'm more outgoing and more yellow in the Myers-Briggs kind of stuff, it's helpful. But the soft skills are so important. I've seen so many really technically qualified people fail because of their lack of soft skills. That question you asked earlier about giving presentations, and, it doesn't matter how good you are technically. If you can't articulate a message and communicate effectively with the board or leadership team or shareholders or analysts, or you're going to fail as an executive, right? You just won't make it. The further up you go, the more important those EQ and soft skills become. That's one thing that I wish I would have known earlier. And I certainly share that with my team. And we spend a lot of time with my leadership team trying to groom those skills. So we purposely do training on that. We do a lot of exercises where we try and give them opportunities. I really trying to push those presentation opportunities down. If I can, I bring, my team to the board meetings and let them present in the audit committee or the board meeting or any chance to the executive leadership to give them a chance to get that experience earlier in their careers. Because I know just how important it is for those folks to have that skill.
It sounds like it became evident to you over time how important they were, but weren't they even a contributor to your earliest chapter at the motorcycle shop? I mean,
oh yeah,
didn't you already have them then, and that's part of the reason you were able to emerge as a leader in that environment, you think?
I believe so. Yeah, there's no question. I've always gotten along well with people, and I love conversing with them, and I build great relationships, and that was critical, right? And you think about especially in a role like as a salesperson and the sales manager, that word of mouth and reference from other customers is what drives your growth, right? And so if you can build a relationship and treat a customer well and they recommend you to 14 other people, well, I just sold 14 more motorcycles, right? And so those early days, again, it's amazing to me how working in a small business like that paid such dividends for me. I think also the education, being a senior in electrical engineering, there was a lot of skills I learned going through that has paid big dividends as well, especially working in the tech space, whether that's the wireless space or software.
I always like to touch on geography. I think it's interesting. You built your career beginning in New Mexico. You mentioned, of course, your narrative. We're in Indianapolis, and now we're in South Carolina. To be honest, 3 parts of the country we don't always touch base with CFOs in. You didn't move to Middle East and Africa, but you might.
They wanted me to. They wanted me to take that role and stay permanently, but
you moved around again. I guess you made a match in Indianapolis. It sounds like you got married there and you moved to South Carolina and raised a family.
Yeah, both our kids were born and raised in Indy, so we were there for I was actually there longer than New Mexico, I think. So the kids were born and raised there. They're Indiana University Kelley School grads, as is my wife. So we're big IU fans. On college football day, I still root for my Aggies. Hopefully they'll have a football team this year. And then Charleston has been wonderful. It's just a tremendous city. There's wonderful people, great history. We just had the new African American Museum open. We were a big contributor to that. We have folks from our company on the board there. It is just a wonderful place to live. We love it. I'm very, very fortunate to find a job in Charleston.
We always like to ask, and if you have a book selection for us, doesn't have to be a business book. It's just something that maybe influenced your thinking along the way, or maybe something you escape with. Anything come to mind?
Can I give you 3?
Oh, please do. Yeah. Our shelf always has space.
I read a lot of books. I love learning, and I try and push my team on that. So we do a lot of those with the team. I would say from a team perspective, and this would go not just for finance folks. We've done this at the corporate level, at the executive leadership team as well. Anything from Patrick Lencioni, right? His books are just tremendous. If you're trying to figure out how to build a team, one of his favorites for me is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. We actually used that in our leadership team years ago with our old CEO because we were not the most functional leadership team, and it really helped. But I think any of his books are tremendous. They're easy reads. They're quick, but just great lessons for any leader, I think, not just finance. One on the personal side, and I don't know how many copies I bought over the years, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. So anybody who has a daughter or daughters, their little book, it's from Dr. Meeker, and tremendous advice for anybody that's raising children. I think she may also have one for sons as well. But I've given out, I don't know, hundreds of copies over the years to folks that work for me and new parents, and tremendous read on the personal front to really help you think about your life as a father and your impact on your daughter. Wonderful read. And then I think from the finance perspective, I would say any book on economic value add, return on invested capital, we've worked with Greg Milano and Fortuna Advisors on some residual cash earnings. We've got a tailored residual cash earnings model that we use for Blackbaud. And I really like that. It's a nice tweak to EVA ROIC that's kind of customized for your business. So it's Blackbaud residual cash earnings that we use. And Greg's got lots of stuff that he's published, lots of articles. You'll find a lot of info out there. But anything along those lines, I think for a finance person, especially somebody who's taking a leadership role in finance, it's just critical that you understand how to measure the return you're getting on your resources and investments. Just critical.
Great selections for us. Thank you. And Patrick Lancioni, yes, he's a favorite, but the other two we haven't had, and I think they're wonderful. Thank you for those. We're up to our final question, which is when we're going to finally ask you to look forward. And we're wondering what your priorities are, Tony, for the coming 12 months as CFO of Blackbaud. What would those be?
Well, it's pretty easy for me, and that is that we deliver on our commitment of obtaining the Rule of 40 in Q4 and for all of next year. Huh. And so, as the market turmoil hit this year, and for the first time in many cases, we saw a lot of big tech companies laying folks off and trying to cut costs and get their profitability and cash flow up because shareholders kind of said, wait a second, interest rates are going up. It's no longer this zero interest. I'm not just after growth. I want to see some profitability and cash flow. And so, like everyone else, we really are making a push on that front. We think our stock has been undervalued, and that's a key component to getting it there. And so the Rule of 40 really is just a focus on improving your growth and your profitability, and it's a combination of those two. And we made a commitment a couple of years ago that we were going to get to the Rule of 40 by, I think, 27 or 28. And we have gotten very aggressive on that front, and we had pulled that in to say we were going to get there by 25. We have now, with our latest guidance this year, said we will be there in Q4 and for all of next year. And so we've said that publicly. So I've got keen focus, as does the entire leadership team, in making sure we deliver to the market. We improved our Rule of 40 from just a year and a half ago by 600 or 700 basis points already. So pretty significant change for us as a company.
Tony Boor, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you, Jack. It's been a pleasure.